Mr. Markham, Mrs. Mock,
Here.
Mr. Porter, Mr. Sherwood, Mrs. Smrek.
Here.
Rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Porter, do you want to read the mission statement, please?
Yes, sir. Vision and mission statement of the Austintown Schools. The Austintown Local School District is a united community with a proud legacy and a progressive approach to education. We provide an inspiring education that strengthens and prepares our students for unlimited future opportunities.
Item number 3 is approving the agenda for the organizational meeting for January 14th, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Mock,
Yes.
Mr. Markham,
Yes.
Mr. Porter, Mr. Sherwood, Mrs. Smrek.
Yes.
We will now be seeking nominations for the office of the President of the Board of Education of the Austintown Local School District. Will approve a motion to open the floor for nominations for the 2025 President of the Board of Education.
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Mock,
Yes.
Mr. Markham,
Yes.
Mr. Porter, Mr. Sherwood, Mrs. Smrek.
Yes.
I will now ask for a nomination from the board.
For president.
We have one nomination of Mr. Markham by Mr. Porter. Is there a second nomination? Hearing none, we approve the motion to close the floor for nominations for president.
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Mock,
Yes.
Mr. Markham,
Yes.
Mr. Porter, Mr. Sherwood, Mrs. Smrek.
Yes.
I will now each call you individually. You affirm with a yes, you dissent with a no. Mr. Markham,
Yes.
Mrs. Mock,
Yes.
Mr. Porter, Mr. Sherwood,
No.
Mrs. Smrek.
No.
The board has nominated with a 3-2 vote of Fred Markham as board president. I will now open the floor for nominations for the office of vice president of the Board of Education. I'd like to approve a motion to open the floor for nominations for the 2025 vice president of the Board of Education.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Markham,
Yes.
Mrs. Mock,
Yes.
Mr. Porter, Mr. Sherwood, Mrs. Smrek.
Yes.
I will now ask of a nomination from the Board of Education. We have a nomination of Mrs. Mock by Mr. Porter. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, I'd ask for a motion to close the floor for nominations for vice president.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Markham,
Yes.
Mr. Porter,
Yes.
Mrs. Mock,
Yes.
Mr. Sherwood, Mrs. Smrek.
Yes.
I will now call each individual's name. Affirm with a yes vote, dissent with a no vote. Mr. Markham,
Yes.
Mrs. Mock,
Yes.
Mr. Porter,
Yes.
Mr. Sherwood, Mrs. Smrek.
No.
Board has nominated Mrs. Kathy Mock as board vice president. I will now administer the oath of office to the 2025 president and vice president.
Together.
You guys can come up together. First is the oath of office for the president. Do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Ohio, and that you will faithfully and impartially discharge your duty as the President of the Board of Education of the Austintown Local School District, Mahoning County, Ohio, to the best of your ability, and in accordance with the laws now in effect and hereafter to be enacted during your continuance in said office of calendar year 2025 and until your successor is elected and qualified? The answer is I do.
I do.
Mrs. Mock, do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Ohio, and that you will faithfully and impartially discharge your duty as the Vice President of the Board of Education of the Austintown Local School District, Mahoning County, Ohio, to the best of your ability in accordance with the laws now in effect and hereafter to be enacted during your continuance in said office of calendar year 2025 and until your successor is elected and qualified? The answer is I do.
I do.
You guys can sign these and we'll. At this time, Mr. Markham, the floor is yours. Item number 8.
What's that?
Yeah, we start with item number 8.
Are you finishing that or
No.
not? Moving on to item number 8. Approve the recommendation that the board use Robert's Rules of Order as parliamentary procedure guidelines for the meetings of the board and its committees.
Second.
Mr. Sherwood? Mrs. Smrek?
Yes.
Mr. Markham?
Yes.
Mrs. Mock?
Yes.
Mr. Porter?
Item number 9, approve the appointment of one member of the Board of Education to serve as a legislative liaison with the Ohio School Boards Association.
I do that.
You want to do it?
Make a motion that Dawn Sherwood be the legislative liaison with the Ohio School Board Association.
I can be the delegate then. Second.
Mr. Sherwood?
Yes.
Mrs. Smrek?
Yes.
Mr. Markham?
Yes.
Mrs. Mock?
Yes.
Mr. Porter?
Item number 10, approve the appointment of one member of the Board of Education to serve as the Student Achievement Liaison with the Ohio School Boards Association. I'd
I
like
can
to
do it.
make a motion for,
So moved.
Mrs. Smrek? Mr. Sherwood? Mr. Markham?
yes.
Mrs. Mock?
Yes.
Mr. Porter?
Item number 11, approve the appointment of one member of the Board of Education to serve as the delegate to the Ohio School Boards Association Capital Conference. I'd like to nominate Kim Smith.
So moved. Second.
Mrs. Mock?
Yes.
Mrs. Smrek?
Yes.
Mr. Markham?
Yes.
Mr. Porter? Mr. Sherwood?
Yeah.
Yeah. And for yourself as alternate.
Item number 12, approve the appointment of one member of the Board of Education to serve as the alternate delegate to the Ohio School Boards Association Capital Conference. I'll nominate myself.
So moved. Second.
Mrs. Mock?
Yes.
Mrs. Smrek? Mr. Markham?
Yes.
Mr. Porter? Mr. Sherwood?
Item number 13, authorize the treasurer to make disbursements for payroll, bonds, and accounts payable when due and invest funds within the authority and in accordance with the board adopted investment policy.
So moved.
Mrs. Smrek?
Yes.
Mr. Sherwood? Mr. Markham?
Yes.
Mrs. Mock?
Yes.
Mr. Porter?
Item number 14, as recommended by law, establish a service fund in the amount of $4,000. Such funds may be used to make reimbursements to members of the board expenses incurred in performance of their duties outside the district.
So moved.
Mrs. Mock,
Yes.
Mr. Sherwood,
Yes.
Mr. Markham,
Yes.
Mr. Porter, Mrs. Smrek.
Yes.
Item 15, approve the resolution for the Board of Education to reserve the right of approval for the purchase of certain goods or services, including utilities, fuel, and food products in the excess of the $15,000, with the provision that exceptional circumstances due to board meeting dates, approval may be granted to the board president or vice president.
So moved. Second.
Mrs. Smrek,
Yes.
Mrs. Mock,
Yes.
Mr. Markham,
Yes.
Mr. Porter, Mr. Sherwood.
Yes.
Item 16, approve the recommendation that travel expenses for board members, superintendent, treasurer, curriculum director, and special education director for OSBA, OASBO, ODE, Regional Chamber of Commerce, and other school-related professional activities be approved through January 1, 2026.
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Mock,
Yes.
Mr. Sherwood,
Yes.
Mr. Markham,
Yes.
Mr. Porter,
Yes.
Mrs. Smrek.
Yes.
Item number 17, approve the recommendation that compensation for board members at the rates and for the purposes outlined in ORC 3313.12 be authorized.
So moved. Second.
Mrs. Smrek,
Yes.
Mrs. Mock,
Yes.
Mr. Markham,
Yes.
Mr. Porter, Mr. Sherwood.
Item 18, approve a resolution authorizing the superintendent to temporarily hire staff when vacancies occur between board meetings and to fill vacancies when it becomes necessary pending board approval.
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Smrek,
Yes.
Mr. Sherwood,
Yes.
Mr. Markham,
Yes.
Mrs. Mock,
Yes.
Mr. Porter.
Yes.
Item 19, approve a resolution authoring the superintendent to accept resignations between board meetings.
Second.
Mr. Sherwood, Mrs. Smrek,
Yes.
Mr. Markham,
Yes.
Mrs. Mock,
Yes.
Mr. Porter.
Item 20, approve the recommendation authorizing the superintendent to file applications for projects and grants considered desirable for the Austintown Local School District.
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Smrek,
Yes.
Mr. Sherwood,
Yes.
Mr. Markham,
Yes.
Mrs. Mock,
Yes.
Mr. Porter.
Yes.
Item 21, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, approve retainment on or as needed basis on the following legal counsel for the district needs, as listed below.
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Smrek,
Yes.
Mr. Sherwood,
Yes.
Mr. Markham,
Yes.
Mrs. Mock,
Yes.
Mr. Porter.
Yes.
Item 22, approve the recommendation to continue participation in the following state and federal grant programs during the 2025 calendar year, as listed below.
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Mock,
Yes.
Mr. Sherwood,
Yes.
Mr. Markham,
Yes.
Mr. Porter, Mrs. Smrek.
Yes.
Item 23, approve the resolution, whereas the following 501c3 nonprofit booster organizations and school support groups may operate for the 2025 calendar year effective 1/1/25 to 12/31/25 and be permitted to use the school's name and district logo as they seek student enrichment and strive to reach educational goals, and listed as the following below.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Sherwood,
Yes.
Mrs. Smrek,
Yes.
Mr. Markham,
Yes.
Mrs. Mock,
Yes.
Mr. Porter.
Yes.
Item 24, approve a day, time, and place for regular session meetings of the Board of Education during the calendar year 2025. The third Thursday of every month at 5 o'clock and here at AMS.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Sherwood,
Yes.
Mrs. Smrek,
Yes.
Mr. Markham,
Yes.
Mrs. Mock,
Yes.
Mr. Porter.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Smrek,
Yes.
Mrs. Mock,
Yes.
Mr. Markham,
Yes.
Mr. Porter, Mr. Sherwood.
Yes.
In order?
Mrs. Mock,
Yes.
Mr. Markham,
Yes.
Mr. Porter,
Yes.
Mr. Sherwood,
Yes.
Mrs. Smrek.
Yes.
Moving on to item 5 in the regular agenda meeting. Agenda. Removing a table item. Upon recommendation of the superintendent, remove item number 13 from the table from the 12/19/2025, correction, 2024 regular session.
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Mock,
Yes.
Mrs. Smrek,
Yes.
Mr. Markham,
Yes.
Mr. Porter, Mr. Sherwood.
Item 6, upon recommendation of the treasurer, approve the agenda for the 1/14/2025 Board of Education regular session.
So moved.
Mrs. Smrek,
Yes.
Mr. Sherwood, Mr. Markham,
Yes.
Mrs. Mock,
Yes.
Mr. Porter.
Our public comment section. We have 2 people signed up to speak. Please be advised, you have 3 minutes per person to speak. Stand up, state your name, and address the board.
I'm Barbara Brothers. You have met me before, an Austintown Fitch graduate, but I live in Fifth Avenue in Youngstown, Ohio. And I am here because I am somewhat disappointed that nothing has been done by the Austintown Board of Education. I feel strongly you have a responsibility to the taxpayers of this district as well as to the school system itself. And for that reason, you need to be sure to support the lawsuit on vouchers. You have clear evidence of the fact that that is going for private students. And as of now, although I think I outlined it for you before, it's Matt Huffman, who is now the Speaker of the House, has made it clear that there will be not money to finish funding the Fair School Funding Plan that was meant to address both the fact of the unfair burden on local taxpayers and to arrive at a formula that would actually figure what the cost was for doing schools. Instead, that money will go to private schools, for which we have no oversight over the money that's spent, how it's spent, or what it's done. I don't have any objection to private schools. That's fine. But they shouldn't be paid for out of my taxpayer dollars they need to go for my public schools. And heaven only knows you have enough needs that for the students. And we are not, and the taxpayers, especially property taxpayers, are facing ever increasing burdens. So what that will mean to the beautiful buildings and the school system that you have established, I think you really, really need to look at that. I gave you information before about how much money you would have, more money you would have to spend were the Fair School Funding Plan fully implemented. And unless people stand up for their schools and the taxpayers in their districts, it's not going to happen.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Amanda Feldbaum. I'm a resident of Austintown. I've lived here for 10 years. I moved here from Oklahoma and then Texas before that. I'm a professor at YSU. I'm speaking today as a resident of Austintown to request that Austintown sign on to the voucher lawsuit that Barbara just mentioned. Austintown has already lost a substantial number of students and funding as a result of the harmful private school voucher program. They lose over $6,000 for every kindergarten through 8th grade student, $8,400 for every high school student. I want Austintown and its students to thrive. I want Austintown schools to fulfill its mission because in order to, quote, it says on the front of here, provide an inspiring education that strengthens and prepares our students for unlimited future opportunities. So I want Austintown schools and its students to thrive. And in order to fulfill the mission of providing an inspiring education that strengthens and prepares our students for unlimited future opportunities, that mission you read at the beginning of the meeting, that takes money. And each student who goes outside of Austintown, that's not only their loss, but it's our loss because our tax dollars go with them in order to pay their private school tuition. I believe you care for our students as well as the fiscal solvency of the district. So please join the lawsuit against the vouchers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on, upon recommendation of the treasurer, approve the following items A through C by consent action.
So moved. Second.
Mrs. Smrek?
Yes.
Mrs. Mock?
Yes.
Mr. Markham?
Yes.
Mr. Porter?
Yes.
Mr. Sherwood?
Yes.
Item 9, upon recommendation of the superintendent, approve the following items A through I by consent action.
So moved. Second.
Mrs. Smrek?
Yes.
Mrs. Mock?
Yes.
Mr. Markham?
Yes.
Mr. Porter? Mr. Sherwood?
Item 10, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, approve the following resolution establishing education requirements for substitute teachers for the 2024-2025 school year and each school year thereafter, as read below.
So moved. Second.
Mrs. Mock?
Yes.
Mrs. Smrek?
Yes.
Mr. Markham?
Yes.
Mr. Porter? Mr. Sherwood?
Yes.
Item 11, upon recommendation of the superintendent, approve the memorandum of understanding by and between Kent State University and Austintown Local School District to participate in the College Credit Plus program, CCP, with Kent State University. This agreement is in effect from July 1st, 2025 to June 30th, 2026. This agreement shall expire on June 30th, 2026.
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Smrek?
Yes.
Mr. Sherwood?
Yes.
Mr. Markham?
Yes.
Mrs. Mock?
Yes.
Mr. Porter?
Item number 12, upon recommendation of the superintendent, approve bass fishing for grades 7 through 12.
So moved.
Mrs. Smrek?
Yes.
Mr. Sherwood?
Yes.
Mr. Markham?
Yes.
Mrs. Mock?
Yes.
Mr. Porter?
Yes.
13, upon recommendation of the superintendent, approve adoption of the following board policy, PO 2265.
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Smrek?
Yes.
Mr. Sherwood?
Yes.
Mr. Markham?
Yes.
Mrs. Mock?
Yes.
Mr. Porter?
Yes.
Item 14, approve the recommendation to the district superintendent to notify the Ohio Department of Education that the Austintown Local School District will again be an open enrollment district in the 2025-2026 school year.
So moved. Second.
Mrs. Smrek?
Yes.
Mrs. Mock?
Yes.
Mr. Markham?
Yes.
Mr. Porter?
No.
Mr. Sherwood?
Yes.
One second for item.
You said the third Thursday? of February? Would be the 20th.
That works.
20th.
Item 15,
Sure.
next work session will be February the 20th 5 PM at AMS, with the work session at 4 PM in the board office.
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Smrek?
Yes.
Mr. Sherwood?
Yes.
Mr. Markham?
Yes.
Mrs. Mock?
Yes.
Mr. Porter?
Yes.
Treasurer's comments?
Nope, I'm good.
Superintendent comments? Any board comments?
I am good. Thank you.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Mrs. Smrek?
Yes.
Mr. Sherwood?
Yes.
Mr. Markham?
Yes.
Mrs. Mock?
Yes.
Mr. Porter?
Yes.